if anybody knows Lamb of God from the beginning, I mean, wow, this is a deep question. So I think they know that I put a lot into that band. I felt like I the first practice ever was at my house. I kind of picked the guys out, and I worked really hard for myself and for the guys the entire time. So that was my oh wow that I mean that was it became really my identity. That was about as personal as it's ever been. When I got to do the Protest the Hero record, that was one of my favorite bands at the time. So that was like a real rush for me to be able to do something. And that was by far the most difficult recording that I did. I'm probably the most proud of. I'm really happy for them that they won the Canadian Grammy for that.
Yep.
And so, that felt like a personal challenge. Like, can you actually pull this off? Which was amazing. And then, of course, getting the call to do the Megadeth thing when I was 14 years old, skateboarding around and trading cassettes of music, I heard a Megadeth song for the first time, and that well, I remember the day, I remember the ramp, I remember the board I had. That like set me on the path to do exactly this. Like Megadeth was the thing that just flipped the switch. So when I got that call, that was like the greatest thing. And I was jumping up and down, like I could not believe it. I was going to be a part of my favorite band of all time, and to have that record, win a Grammy, it was just amazing. As things, progressed from there, and for different reasons, uh, moving on into chapter two, it took me a while. Like when I split from those projects, it was not ideal, and it was not kind of what I wanted, and so it hurt, man. I was really devastated by that whole thing, and it took me a while to kind of climb out of the hole. There were other things going on in my life. My mom passed away. I was in the middle of a terrible divorce. I'd had the motorcycle accident, and I haven't talked about this before, but I had at the same time in like 2007, 16, 17, right in the end of 16, I was diagnosed with something called musician's dystonia, which basically is we can get into it, but I didn't want to talk about it at the time because I felt like it would really hinder my career. But I've gone through an incredible amount of work to be able to come back from it. What it is, and I've heard Alex Webster talk about this before, and I'm buddies with him, and recently saw the Nickelback documentary. I'm not the biggest Nickelback fan, but it's a great documentary if you haven't seen it.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, their drummer Daniel went through the same thing. It may have been with his arm or his hand, but he was diagnosed with dystonia. And for a drummer, really for anybody that plays an instrument, it's kind of a death sentence. So mine was with my right foot. Dystonia is basically a neurological condition where the nerve that controls the movement of any particular body part basically deteriorates to the point where that motion becomes impossible. So people that repeat the same repetitive motion for decades at a time, this happens to them. It happens a lot to like golfers, quarterbacks, first chair violinists, people that just practice the hell out of what they're doing. And this happened to me with my right foot. So I would be playing a song, and my foot, when I intended it to depress the pedal, would shoot off to the side or shoot back. And so I went through, and that was at the point where I was coming off stage just so depressed with my performance. I think the band was very frustrated, with my performance. I did give them, the medical paperwork. Here's what it is. Here's what we can do. There's just a couple songs that are really aggravating this. The rest I can get through if you're willing to change them. I think at the time I had also joined Megadeth, so tensions were really high, and we were never like the most functional group of people traveling around the world. If you know anything about the band,
I do.
whoever was not in the room was basically getting picked on, and I think the combination of things got to the point where they didn't want to deal with it, and I wasn't happy with my performances, so that kind of stopped the train. It was one of those emails, service is no longer required kind of thing. And that was devastating because it really was. I felt like it was my baby, it was my project, and I put my life into it. It was my identity. So I had to take some time. And of course, these other things that were going on, and really just trying to find a purpose, trying to decide what chapter two was going to be about. And I knew that I wanted to play. I knew that it would be stupid for me to try to compete with what I had done before because we really did way more than anybody, including ourselves, thought we could have done. I felt like we've, like I said, we talked about earlier, like 22 years of traveling the world. And, I don't really count the awards or accolades, but there really wasn't, I didn't feel like a whole lot more to achieve other than just proving that we were still around. So it wasn't like a total death sentence. I think I got off the train at a very good time. It was just because of the other circumstances that contributed to it that it was difficult for me to find any um, relief in that. I was more depressed and kind of searching for who I am and what I'm going to do next. So a couple years of like intense practice, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and really the only way around dystonia is learning to do what you do in a different way. So in that my right foot was the issue, I really learned how to play drums backwards, where my left foot became my main foot, which would kind of trick my brain into trying to figure out how to get the right foot to not be the lead, which was using a different pathway. So I, over time, practiced that to the point where I was able to do the stuff that you're hearing on the Firstborn record. As far as it being personal, I think it was a triumph for me to get through that stuff, to still have the interest and ability to be able to play and to want to do it, and to then surround myself with people that it wasn't the same kind of situation that I had come from, where everybody's like maybe not getting along very well, and somebody's getting picked on all the time. These were like genuine friends that had a genuine interest in, we all had a genuine interest in each other and our lives, and the same kind of music, which was this kind of more, it wasn't necessarily fun, but this kind of hard rock metal from the 80s and early 90s that we grew up on. It wasn't this like, no reason to try to, again, compete with the pummeling, we're harder than you are, and, rah, rah, rah kind of stuff. It was like, let's play something that kind of stuff that we listen to when we're home, like I don't know anything, Rat, Skid Row, whatever, that, when we're home making dinner, the stuff that's on the radio or that we put on Spotify. And so it was, again, I don't want to call it necessarily a triumph, but it was, I definitely came out of the hole that I was in. So, and to meet these guys and to have them want to work with me, I definitely feel it was, I don't know. I'm very happy with myself. Very satisfied with the project, and it is it's a bit of a personal triumph for me. And I think these guys are super excited to be able to work with each other, work with me, and to have this product that I don't know what it's going to do. I think people are probably going to hear it. Maybe a lot of people hear it because I'm in it, and certainly expect something wildly different than what it is. That's okay, and I had to swallow that as well. Like, I know people are going to expect this, but if I don't feel like I would be doing myself any favors by doing the same thing again with different people. So I wanted to do something different, a little more fun, and a little more wide open, where we weren't, once we got together in the room, we weren't challenging the idea of what other people would like. It was just like, what'd you dream up last night as a riff? Okay, this sounds good. Like, here we go. And no, don't question, is that a genre? It's like, I don't even know what kind of song that is. But it does, it feels good right now. And let's not overthink it. And if it sounds good and we can get some good lyrics on it, let's do it.
I got to commend you for being able to work through something like that, man, and to come back in such a powerful way like you have. I mean, like, Chris, thanks for sharing that first off. Like, that's, wow. Like, I had no idea. I don't think many people did have an idea that that was going on. I mean, and you're right, but like, that's your kicker, man. You know what I mean? So that would have absolutely been very detrimental to your performance. So congratulations and bravo for pulling through and coming out on the other side, because I mean, that can end careers essentially, man. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it definitely could. I think it has. I think, I know a lot of people that have symptoms of it but haven't been diagnosed with it. I think it's a little more common than some of the like lifelong players want to admit. I think they find ways around it, or they, I know a couple guys where it's like, okay, we're not going to play that song anymore because of this issue that, I recognize after being diagnosed. But yes, thank you very, very much for that. It was challenging, and it wasn't the easiest decision to continue even wanting to play. So putting myself through the work and getting to a point where now I'm very happy and satisfied with what I'm able to offer. It did take a minute, and I appreciate that.
Of course, and bringing that information to the project you ran, of course, being Lamb of God at the time, I'm still kind of surprised that they would have given you that email, because, man, you were Burn the Priest days. You were the very beginning. You were. I mean, when I'll be honest here, when Randy was unable to do interviews for whatever reasons, you were the guy who was doing the interviews, doing the media, doing the talks like you're doing now. You really did do a lot of carrying, I think, at some point during that band. I could be wrong. So I still to this day am a little surprised, and I've interviewed other guys in the band, and I've never really talked about it. But with you, I wanted to sort of say that I am a little surprised that that separation happened, being that you were so ideal to that formula for that band.
It was devastating to me. It really was. Like I said, I really considered that kind of my life's work. But from my side of the street, I understand. I wasn't capable of playing the songs that we really needed to be playing. These were the songs that were not all of them, but there were two or three songs that were fairly popular songs, and I understand that that would cause them pause as far as why we can't play that. And again, with me taking on the Megadeth record and that doing so well, with me taking on the Protest record and that doing so well, I think the tensions were just high. And, like the metal sites always say, everybody's replaceable, right?
Right.
So I did take it hard. I did take it personally, and it sent me spiraling for a little while. But I've worked through those resentments, and I've got nothing but love for them, continuing on, and for each one of them. It was a difficult time, I think, for everybody, and yeah, it hurt me a lot. But thankfully, with things have drastically improved in my life. I've gotten remarried. We've got three teenagers. I've got a nice little house. We've got dogs, cats. And now I got firstborn that is, keeping me busy all the time. So I could look back on that and really be very, very proud of the time, effort, and career that I had with them. And I wouldn't do it any other way. It's unfortunate it ended the way it did, but in the end, looking back on it, I also think that I would, in that I was forced at the time to uh, walk away from it. I don't know if there would have since that time. I don't know that there would have been a better time for anybody to depart. I mean, I at least personally, I do feel like we achieved more than we ever set out to do, and it had gotten to the point where again, it doesn't really matter what the accolades were, but we had received basically all of them. So now it's just kind of this rinse and repeat on proving to everybody that we're still around. And I didn't feel like there was much higher to go. The ceiling was kind of, we reached way higher than I ever thought we would, and all the best to them, and good luck, continuing on. But looking back now, despite where my headspace was at the time, but looking back now in a different mindset, it was probably a very good time to walk away.
And and I'm just going to ask one final question with that. Then I do want to move on to some other great stuff. But I do want to finally ask, is though, has there been any open communication with anyone within the band at all? Like, have you spoken with them at all, or at least even individual members? Is there still any sort of relationship there whatsoever? And if the opportunity came to return, do you think that you would consider that?
Oh wow, there hasn't been any, and again, I've worked through those resentments, and I think about those guys all the time in a positive way. But since that letter, I believe it was in 2018, or the email, there's been absolutely no communication whatsoever from either side. Um, would I step in to do it again? I mean, oh, I that it. Oh man.